Ron DeSanctimonious, Meatball Ron, the white boot wearing, book banning, speech censoring right wing alternative to Donald Trump, who fizzled faster than a sparkler in a cup of water, is back in the news. And because he's back in the news, Democratic Senator John Fetterman totally punked him. I'm going to show you the funniest political video in the last 20 years. But first, why was Fetterman going after Meatball Ron to begin with? Was it because DeSantis found more literature to ban from public schools? Romeo and Juliet is about gangs, after all. No, of course not. Romeo and Juliet are about white people. No issue there. Though, let's face it, Juliet's nurse seems to have an unhealthy attachment to the nubile young woman. Is it because he broke campaign laws around the abortion ballot initiative in his state? No, don't be silly. Campaign laws are only on the books so that Republicans can violate them without comment or consequence, while the media can engage in pearl clutching if Democrats misplace a comma on their disclosure forms. So, no, it's not for that. DeSantis is back in the news, but it's not for anything that he's actually done. I mean, come on, the guy hasn't done anything, especially anything constructive. No, DeSantis is back in the news because the media is finally getting tired of Pete Hegseth imploding, and they need a new story. God forbid they give Russian asset Tulsi Gabbard a thorough analysis. That would require them to go over their quota for negative news about Republicans. And sure, exposing Gabbard as a Russian asset and a paid stooge for Syria's dictator Bashar al-Assad is more along the lines of shooting fish in a barrel than it is actual investigative journalism. And so now it's time to muse over Ron DeSantis. And why is the media musing over Meatball Ron? Because the Wall Street Journal reported that Trump is mulling over DeSantis to replace the axe-throwing Pete, it's 5 o'clock somewhere Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. And now the media is going to go down that rabbit hole like it's a legitimate piece of news. Little reminder here, press corps. Trump was mulling over Mitt Romney to be Secretary of State back in the transition to his first administration. This is when most of Trump's nominees were selected to be a guardrail against the brash and impulsive, "you're fired" businessman and pageant queen Ogler, who was going to serve as president. So Romney seemed like a legitimate contender for Secretary of State. Only Romney wasn't being considered as Secretary of State at all. Instead, it was just a humiliation tactic on Trump's part to make a political critic come and kiss the ring. And it worked. And dollars to donuts, Trump is doing the same thing with Meatball Ron. He'll make him come to the White House, kiss the ring, and then select somebody else. But if Trump thinks he can humiliate Ron DeSanctimonious, he's got another thing coming, because John Fetterman already beat him to the punch. Watch Fetterman respond to questions about the Florida governor.
I'm considering voting yes on DeSantis if he finally admits that he has lifts in his boots. I'm sure he does. I think maybe 3 inches, 4 inches at least.
Lordy, go fetch Jordy. Fetterman could not have been any funnier. But the absolute genius of Fetterman's putdown is this. It works both literally and figuratively. Because if Ron DeSanctimonious has proven anything, it's that he is indeed a very small man. Let's just recap that by turning to the theme song of one of DeSanctimonious's favorite corporations. MIC. See you later, Meatball Ron. KY. Why? Because Fetterman just handed you your hat. MOUSE. Yow, he really kicked your can to the curb. Despite suffering a stroke, Fetterman gave a very quick-witted response to a typical media following the fad moment. And for the most part, Fetterman is a loose cannon. You just never know which way the cannon's going to point. He's a lot more receptive to Dr. Oz these days than anyone would like to see. But we are going to need Democrats who know how to punch back in the days ahead. And you have to admit, Fetterman knows how to punch. And how to deliver a punchline. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.